From far away, Saturn looks almost peaceful, a pale golden world surrounded by rings so perfect they seem unreal. It is one of the most beautiful objects in the solar system, a planet that looks less like a place and more like something designed for a painting. But that beauty is dangerous. Saturn is not a world where you can stand. It has no solid surface, no ground waiting beneath the clouds, no place where a spacecraft could land and rest. What looks like a planet with an edge is really a vast atmosphere that grows thicker, hotter, and more crushing the deeper you fall. If you somehow began falling into Saturn, the first thing you would see might be breathtaking. The rings would stretch across the sky like enormous glowing bands of ice. The planet itself would grow larger beneath you, covered in soft yellow clouds and faint storms. For a moment, it might look calm. Then the illusion would begin to break. Before reaching Saturn itself, you would likely pass near its rings. From Earth, the rings look smooth and solid, almost like a flat disk surrounding the planet. But up close, they would not look solid at all. They're made of countless pieces of ice and rock, ranging from tiny grains to larger chunks moving in orbits around Saturn. As you approach, the rings would become less like a clean line and more like a vast glittering field of debris. Pieces of ice would reflect sunlight in every direction. Gaps and divisions would become visible. Some regions would look denser than others, while the planet's moons quietly shape and disturb the ring material with gravity. It would be beautiful, but it would also be dangerous. Traveling through the rings at high speed could be deadly. Even a small piece of ice could hit with enough force to damage a spacecraft. The rings are not a gentle halo. They are a moving system of frozen debris, controlled by gravity, collision, and time. And below them, Saturn would keep growing larger. As you descended toward the planet, the cloud tops would come into view. Saturn's atmosphere is mostly hydrogen and helium, but its visible clouds are shaped by other chemicals, including ammonia ice in the upper layers. From a distance, the clouds look smooth compared to Jupiter, with softer colors and less dramatic contrast. But that calm appearance hides extreme motion. Saturn is a world of powerful winds. Its atmosphere rotates quickly, and its bands are driven by jet streams that can move faster than the strongest winds on Earth. The planet spins so rapidly that it is slightly flattened at the poles and bulging at the equator. As you fell closer, the clouds would no longer look like soft stripes. They would become enormous weather systems. Pale bands would stretch beyond the horizon. Storms would rotate below you. The scale would become impossible to judge because everything would be too large. On Earth, clouds are part of the sky. On Saturn, the clouds are the beginning of the planet. The most disturbing moment would come when you realize there is no ground beneath you. On a rocky planet, falling means moving towards the surface. On Saturn, falling means moving deeper into the atmosphere. At first, the air would be thin compared to what lies below. But as you continued downward, the pressure would rise, the gas around you would grow thicker, the sunlight would fade, the clean view of space would disappear behind layers of cloud and haze. There would be no ocean, no land, no mountain, and no hard crust waiting at the bottom. Instead, the atmosphere would slowly become denser until the distinction between gas and liquid began to lose meaning. You would not splash into the ocean in the normal sense. You would sink into a planet that gradually changes from swirling gas into deeper fluid layers. This is what makes gas giants so strange. They do not have surfaces like Earth. They're not empty balls of air. They are enormous worlds where pressure itself transforms matter. As you continued falling, the winds would become more violent. Saturn's storms are not small weather events. Some can grow to sizes larger than Earth. The planet has produced massive storm systems known as Great White Spots, bright eruptions that can spread around the planet and last for months. You might pass through layers where lightning flashes inside the clouds. On Saturn, storms can create powerful electrical activity deep in the atmosphere. The flashes would not look like a familiar thunderstorm on Earth. They would appear inside endless clouds of hydrogen and ammonia, lighting up the haze around you for brief moments before everything returned to darkness. The deeper you went, the less Saturn would look like the planet in photographs, The rings would vanish from view, the sun would become faint, the soft golden clouds would become a crushing, turbulent environment with no horizon, no sky, and no stable direction except down. Saturn's beauty exists at the top. The deeper layers are something else entirely. At some point, the pressure would become the main threat. Every kilometer downward would add more weight from the atmosphere above. On Earth, we feel 1 atmosphere of pressure at sea level. On Saturn, the pressure increases as you fall, eventually becoming powerful enough to crush any normal spacecraft. The temperature would also rise. Saturn may be far from the sun, but deep inside, it's not cold. It radiates more energy than it receives from the sun, partly because of heat left over from its formation and internal process. As you descended, the environment would become hotter and more compressed. A human body would not survive this. A spacecraft would not survive for long either. Instruments might continue sending data for a while, but eventually the pressure and heat would overwhelm everything. This is where the idea of falling becomes more horrifying. There's no impact, no final crash. Instead, the planet slowly destroys you by becoming heavier and hotter around you. Deeper inside Saturn, hydrogen behaves in ways that are difficult to imagine. Under extreme pressure, the atmosphere thickens. Gas transitions into fluid without a clear boundary. The deeper layers become a strange ocean of compressed hydrogen and helium, not like any sea on Earth. Farther down, hydrogen may become metallic. This does not mean shiny metal in the ordinary sense, but a state where hydrogen conducts electricity because of the enormous pressure. This metallic hydrogen layer is one of the reasons giant planets can have powerful magnetic fields. If your descent somehow continued, you would be passing through matter transformed by pressure into alien states. The familiar categories of solid, liquid, and gas would stop feeling useful. Saturn would become less like a planet you fall onto and more like a physical process you disappear into. Everything around you would be thick, hot, dark, and crushing. At the deepest levels, Saturn may have a core made of heavier materials like rock and ice mixed with hydrogen and helium. But even the idea of a core is not simple. Modern studies suggest the interiors of gas giants may be more blended and diffuse than other models imagine, with heavy material gradually mixing into surrounding layers rather than forming a neat solid ball. You would never see this core. No window, camera, or human eye could survive long enough to reach it. Long before that, the spacecraft would be crushed, melted, and vaporized. The signal would fail. The descent would end not with a landing, but with silence. That's what makes Saturn different from a place like Mars or the Moon. Those worlds may be dangerous, but at least they have surfaces. Saturn does not offer that. It only offers depth. So what would falling into Saturn actually look like? At first, it would be one of the most beautiful sights imaginable. The rings would spread across space like a glowing road of ice. The planet would rise beneath you, pale and enormous. Its cloud bands wrapped around a world larger than anything Earth could prepare you for. Then the beauty would turn hostile. The cloud tops would swallow the sky, winds would tear around you, storms and lightning would flash inside the atmosphere, the pressure would rise, the temperature would climb, the gas would thicken into fluid, and eventually everything recognizable would disappear. There would be no surface, no landing, no final moment standing on Saturn, just a descent into deeper and deeper layers of hydrogen, helium, heat, pressure, and darkness. That is the truth hidden behind Saturn's beauty. The rings make it look delicate, the colors make it look calm, but beneath those clouds is a world that would not let anything pass through unchanged. Saturn is not a place you fall onto, it's a place you fall into, until the planet itself erases you.